so chances are I'll read a bit more, but I still wanted to record this video today. Also, I don't really know what happened in July. I read 8 books as of today, probably 9 or 10 in total. As always, as I'm sure many of you can relate to, July was my exam season, and I am happy to report that I did pass all of my exams. But because of that, I only picked out 2 books two for my TBR instead of the usual 4. And then I just somehow read 8 books. I don't know why, I don't know how, I don't know what happened. Anyway, let's get right into it with the first book that I showed you last month, I think, as my current read. This is, and I'm sorry for my pronunciation, that's probably off, Yang Chu's Schattenbraut, or as it's called in English, The Ghost Bride. So this was written originally in English, but I read it in German. And I've got such a beautiful special edition, it's so pretty. Also, if you take the dust jacket off, so gorgeous. Okay. To be honest, I don't remember my star rating. I'll put it on the screen somewhere. But this is about Lilan, who comes from a good but poor family, and her dad suggests she marry a dead man and thus become a ghost bride, which she doesn't want to do. There's a lot of like supernatural things going on, but I don't really, it feels inaccurate to call it that. By an accident, she gets transported into the ghost world, like the realm in between life and death, and she wants to get back, obviously. So gorgeous. So how did I like it? The book has its lengths, and I did get a little bored throughout it, but where it really excels is like the cultural parts and how the setting. This takes place in Malaya, 1893, so what is today Malaysia, and how the setting and the culture and the beliefs about death and life are woven into the story. I think the author does a brilliant job of that. I didn't really like the writing style, but that is mainly due to the German translation, because the translation used really colloquial phrases that didn't really fit in with the time. So I don't know if it's like this in the English original or if it's a German translation thingy. Yeah, but I did have some problems with some of the phrases that were used, some of the sentences. Yeah, anyway. Overall I did like it. Don't know if it's like a rereader, yeah, but it's very pretty. Okay. And then next I'll show you all 3 books, but I think I'll only do sounds with the first one. I reread an entire trilogy. It's a teen trilogy, so it's not super long, but anyway, I'll show you. Okay. Now I don't know if anyone is familiar with these books. Maybe not the English native speakers might not be familiar with these, with their German covers. This is the first children's teen trilogy by Casting Gear, who's like the author for German teen girls. They have been translated into English and they have also been made into movies. So the first book is Rot, Ruby Red. Love goes through all times, or love continues through all times. Then we have Sapphire Blue, and lastly Emerald Green. Yeah, I'll put part 2 and 3 to the side because they're really heavy. Okay, so Ruby Red. As you can see, the pages are kind of yellow. That is because I've owned this book for 10 years. If you don't know what this is about, I think probably pretty much every single girl who grew up in Germany read these, if she read books growing up. So my German subscribers will probably know these books. They have also recently been republished with a couple of changes in the story. So a couple of plot holes were filled, and I think the protagonist is now vegetarian or something. Because in this book she eats a lot of meat, and in the newer versions I don't think she does. Yeah, and I think there were some like sensitivity checks that this book didn't have. Yeah. Anyway, I read my old version, the one that I've had since I was like 14. But what is it about? Ruby Red is about Gwendolyn, and she's part of like a really big crazy family. So she lives with her mom, her 2 little siblings, her grandma, her aunt, her cousin, and a butler. And there's something weird going on with her family. Her cousin Charlotte is supposed to have inherited a gene that allows her to travel through time backwards, not into the future, just backwards. And there's this like cult going on that wants to save the world, and her cousin is supposed to be a part of that. But as it turns out, it's Gwendolyn who inherited the gene, so she's the one who travels backwards in time. And she meets Gideon, who's approximately her age and is part of this cult. So he's been training for this secret mission his entire life, and Gwendolyn knows nothing about it. And so they hate each other, but they have to work together because there's a lot at stake. And maybe, just maybe, the cult isn't as great and as good as they want you to think. Yeah. I think I gave the entire trilogy 5 or 4 stars. It's such a classic. Like teen me lived for these books. And even today I read pretty much everything Casting Gear puts out. So if you like teen books even as an adult, definitely check this out because it's so good. I only watched the first movie, which wasn't particularly good. And I've heard that the second one is even worse because they recast the one who plays Gideon. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't really like it. But the books are magnificent. Good. I read all 3 of those in one single weekend, so like 4 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 3 books. Okay, and then next I got started on my July TBR. The first book on my July TBR was this, Blind Willow, Sleeping Woman by Haruki Murakami, which is a short story collection. Oh, it makes great gripping noises. This is the first content that I've read by women really weirdly, because he does. I ended up giving this 3 stars, I believe, because, well, some short stories were really, really good. Overall, this did remind me why I don't generally like short story collections. Oftentimes I feel like short stories want to tell me something, but I just don't get it. And so I'm left feeling super confused and, yeah, don't really know what I should do with what I've just read. And this was very much like that. Let me see. I think the short stories I enjoyed the most were A Perfect Day for Kangaroos, because I like kangaroos. Tony Takitani was really sad, but I kind of liked it. What was Crabs about? Oh yeah, no, I didn't like that. Oh, I really liked Hanalei Bay. That was my favorite one. But I also really liked the Shinagawa monkey. Yeah. The very first story was a great introduction to the way Murakami thinks about women, because we're sitting in a hospital and the protagonist, is the narrator, is reminiscing about the time he visited a woman in the hospital, and she was his friend's girlfriend, and they visited her together. I don't know why she was in the hospital, it wasn't too serious or anything. But just randomly in the middle of reminiscing about the conversation they had, he's like, and he looked at her white, you know what, melons sticking out of her top. And I was like, what? First of all, that's your friend's girlfriend. Second of all, she's in the hospital. Third, you're in the hospital. Fourth, you're in the hospital thinking about this. And, like, obviously in short stories, the characters stay rather two-dimensional. But the women even more so than the men. Like in one story was about a man who's... Was that Tony Takitani? If it was, then I didn't like it. Anyway, one story was about a man who is all alone. And then he marries, and his wife has a shopping addiction, and then she dies, and then he's all alone again. And like the only defining character trait of the woman was that she had a shopping addiction, and that led directly to her death. I don't know, but I think that was Tony Takitani, which I didn't like. I've read a couple of Japanese books now, and obviously you can't put them all into one pot, but I feel like there's a certain aura that surrounds Japanese books, because there's, or maybe that's just the Japanese books that go viral and get translated, but most of the Japanese books I've read have something like whimsically mundane about it, which I think is really interesting, but it's not really my vibe. So I've read one about like the blanket cats or something, the memory police kind of, but not really. And this one definitely was whimsically mundane, and I can see why people would really love it, but it's not really for me. Okay. So there's that. Okay, we're almost at the end already. Well, that went so... Oh no, okay, I forgot one. Okay. Next, book number 2. That was on my July TBR. Cassandra Clare's Sword Catcher. Sword Catcher. I have never read anything by Cassandra Clare before, but I know she's the one who created like Shadowhunter's universe. This does not take place in that universe. This is 600 pages of political fantasy set in a fantasy world and in a city-state in that fantasy world. And it's about Kel and Lynn. The other one was called Lilan, but she's called Lynn. I wanted to say another Lynn, but she's, the first Lynn. So Kel is the sword catcher, and what that means is that he grew up alongside the prince, and he's supposed to take the prince's place in dangerous situations, so that if anything happens, he's the one who gets killed. Or take his place when the prince is just nowhere to be found, which also happens. But Kel himself doesn't come from wealth. He's just, by a completely accidental likeness visually to the prince, he's thrown into this world that he barely understands at quite a young age and then grows up in it. Yeah, and the other character is Lynn. And Lynn is a member of a marginalized group. So her group is the only group of people still able to do a little bit of magic, because magic largely disappeared from the world. But because of that, they are ostracized and stereotyped, and there are a lot of prejudices about them. Some think they're just weird, some think they're dangerous, some don't think about them at all. And she's a healer, the first female healer, because her group of people is also insanely misogynistic. Which is just a side note, and after a failed assassination, Kel and Lynn are brought together. And there's danger and dangerous threat brewing and lurking in the dark. And another character we meet is the Rag Picker King, who's like the underworld boss in this world. And Lynn and Kel are also confronted with the Rag Picker King in very different ways. Yeah. So I really, really like this book, and I'm currently planning on buying part 2 very soon. I haven't bought it yet, but I will soon. Probably in August or early September. If you like slow-paced political fantasy, this is your jam. The world building is phenomenal. I also really liked how fleshed out the characters were, and the writing style was really good. It is, again, a slow-paced book. On Redo, where I track my reading alongside with Goodreads, there are like comments that you can write while reading the book, and a lot of these comments were not really complaining but just noticing that nothing much happened and that it was very slow. And I think some people didn't like this book because there's no dragon fights or huge massacres or like dangerous hastes or brutal murder or anything going on. Like, I would say the stakes are quite high, but they're high in a like subtle way. In a political way. So if you go in expecting something similar to, Fourth Wing or what else? Yeah, I think Fourth Wing is a good comparison because it's so high stakes and there's so much action in it. Or like, even The Hunger Games, for example. The Hunger Games is also quite like action-packed. You will be disappointed because there's a lot of talk and a lot less action. But the talking is very much important to this this one. Also, don't mind the huge gap right here. This is where this one belongs, and as it's quite thick, it also left a huge gap. Then the next book I read is a book that I gifted to my mom, and she didn't want to have it anymore. Because like she enjoyed it, but she didn't want to keep it, so I got it. This is Tana French Der Sucher. I think it's The Seeker in English, but I'm not sure. The Searcher. I don't know, but it means The Seeker. And I gave this to my mom, I think for Christmas or for her birthday, because it takes place in Ireland, and we visited Ireland last summer, and so I gave it to her like as a funny, oh, we're going to Ireland, don't you want to read something about Ireland book, last year. So she read it before we went to Ireland. I don't know, this is kind of a tradition that I've picked up. Before we went to Scotland, I gave her a book that took place in Scotland. Before she went to France, I got her a book that took place in France, and so on. And I've also gotten her a book that takes place where my parents are going next summer, but I'm not going to tell you where they're going because I might be tagging along, and in that case you'll see the vacation vlog. Anyway, I didn't expect to love this book so much. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. It's advertised as a thriller, but I don't think that's really accurate. It's not a classic whodunit. It's not like murder on the first page and then you try and find out who did it. This is about Cal. Cal is a retired ex-cop from Chicago who moves to rural countryside Ireland, West Ireland. And there are strange things going on. So on the farms surrounding his property, something is killing off the sheep in a really weird way. There's also this child that keeps appearing on Cal's doorstep and just hanging out there and kind of like, what's the word? Observing him. Yeah, very weird. And then he starts a search that will ruthlessly affect everyone around him. Yeah, I really, really liked it. It has a found family trope, which I'm a sucker for. Yeah, as I said, it's not really a murder mystery. Up until the very end, you don't even know if someone's been murdered at all, or if someone's dead at all. Because, minor spoiler, Cal is searching for someone, but he doesn't know if the person's dead or if the person just moved away or what happened, so we don't know what happened to the person, just that they're missing. Yeah. There's also a part 2 and a part 3, also about Cal, taking place like after this story concludes. But I'm not sure whether I want to read it or not, because I thought that this one had quite a satisfying ending. I've also checked out some other books by Tana French, but I wasn't really interested in any of them, I think. Might have to look again. Please recommend me if she has written any other books that you think I might like. Please recommend them to me. Okay. And then I completed another book just yesterday, but I read it as an audiobook, so I don't have it here. I'll put a picture of the cover on the screen. It's called Mord im Paradies, I believe. Murder in Paradise. Wait, let me look this up. Mord unter Palmen, okay, Mord unter Palmen. Murder beneath palm trees. And it takes place in the universe of the three investigators, which you know I've talked about a little bit. So the three investigators are a private investigator group of three teenagers. Jupiter, Pete and Bob. I can't remember their English names. I think they're Jupiter, Pete and Bob, but in German they're called Justus, Peter and Bob. Anyway, this is like a spin-off. There are 3 parts, and each part is about a different side character. So the first one, which I've listened to at the beginning of the year, is about Matilda, who's Jupiter's aunt. The second one that I listened to just now is about Victor Eugenie, who's a major antagonist, but like he's a gentleman criminal. And the third one is about, I don't know his English title. He's a cop. He's a police officer, and his name is Reynolds. In German, he's Kommissar Reynolds, but I don't know his English title. Who is the like police officer that the investigators always go to when they have questions in the early books. But by now he's retired, and another one, Inspector Cotter, has taken over. But Reynolds is still alive and doing well, he's just retired. Yeah, anyway, every one of these 3 books takes place when the 3 investigators are out of town on holiday or something. And Victor Eugenie and Reynolds separately witness a murder and try and clear it up. Yeah. So this one is about Victor Eugenie, who arrives at the house of a criminal friend of his, presumably, and finds out that this person is dead, and it probably wasn't an accident, and so he stays and pretends that he's a private investigator to find out what really happened, and also to get the criminal friends paintings, because they're worth a lot of money. Yeah. I'm currently commuting to work, and so I listen to this on the way to and from work every day. And it was a really nice story. I didn't fully pay attention, so I might have missed some bits and pieces. But I really enjoyed it, and yeah. If you like The Three Investigator, definitely check it out. And also if you know German, because obviously it's in German. Anyway, next I want to show you my current read and then my August TBR. So next week, starting tomorrow, by the time you're seeing this, I will start the 3rd book in the Three Investigators spin-off, which is about Reynolds, the police officer, and listen to that. Obviously I haven't started it yet, but by the time you're seeing this I will most likely have finished it, so I'll put on screen how I liked it. Just the star rating. And also I just recently started Twin Crowns. I haven't gotten very far. Which is about twin sisters separated at birth. One was raised as a princess, and the other was raised to usurp her throne and, yeah, take over the kingdom in place of her twin sister. But it probably won't be that easy. This is also a really pretty special edition. So gorgeous. I can't really say much about it, as I've only just now started. But I think I'll enjoy it. Okay. And last but not least, my August TBR. And this time I only have 3 books for August, because those are the only 3 I have left. After that, I won't have any more books to read, and I'll have to buy new ones. Oh no. So, first we have Goethe's Faust, which I think most people have heard of it. Is it in focus? I'm not sure. Yeah, but I wanted to read it. Then I have another German one that I got from my mom, like 7 more parts, but you can also read this as a standalone, so that made it less intimidating for me. And there we go. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe you're already asleep, and if you aren't, I hope that you fall asleep quickly tonight, and that you wake up tomorrow feeling refreshed and full of energy. And I'll see you in my next video. Good night. Good night. Good night. Bye bye. Thank you to my lovely channel members. Debbie Berry, Crashed